Welcome back to Pause to Unedit Yourself, a podcast where reflection meets transformation, where we explore the art of becoming one intentional pause at a time. I'm your host, Anushka, and each episode offers you a chance to press pause and explore bite sized insights and soulful reflections from my own journey of introspection in the hope it will help you too on your path of personal evolution. Whether you're feeling stuck, seeking clarity, or simply wanting to expand, my hope is that this becomes a space of inspiration and deep remembering, guiding you to evolve from within and uncover the infinite potential that lives inside each and every one of you. Several episodes back, we peel back the layers of what love is and what it's not. We explored that true love is not possession, but presence, not demand, but devotion. And I got a lot of feedback from people who wanted to learn more and understand more about this in our relationship. So today we take it one layer deeper and we are going to explore how love plays out in our relationships, especially through the lenses of attachment, ego, and the dance between the masculine and feminine energy. So let's begin with this notion. Most of the pain that we experience in love is not because of love itself, but because of the images and expectations we attach to love. You see, we don't relate to people as they are. We relate to the image we've created of them and of who we think we need to be in their presence. This is something I sat with for quite a while when I started exploring this notion of love in relationships. And what it brought up is that this is the root of attachment, this mental picture that we create, and we all do it, of how someone should be or how a relationship should make us feel, a desire for things to go a certain way, for someone to act a certain way, for a dynamic to unfold exactly as we imagined. And this goes for, friendships, relationships. And when reality doesn't match that image, what happens? Well, we suffer. And not because love hurts us, it's because our attachment to that image did. Yeah. Let's that sit for a while. So the thing that I uncovered, the truth was that attachments are not a form of love. What they are actually a form of fear. They're the ego clinging to this fixed outcome. And this outcome is coming from this mindset of a need. And whenever there is a need that I need something, what happens? It creates lack. And we are abundant beings. So it's normal that anything that creates lack is going to be taken away from us because we are whole as we are. So when we love from a place of attachment, we're not actually loving freely. We're actually loving with our script in our hands saying, "Well, be this way so I can feel safe." True love, that unconditional love, it asks for nothing. It doesn't cling. It doesn't control. It simply is. The ego, it can't love this way. It's impossible for the ego to love this way because the ego, it wants to control. It wants to possess. It wants to label. And so what it does is that it starts creating these categories of good or bad, safe or unsafe. worthy or unworthy. And whilst we're in this process of sorting, what happens is that we lose the flow of love. So when we start to loosen this grip of ego, when we stop categorizing, labeling, and controlling every experience that we feel has to be a certain way, we stop needing love to look a certain way. And to love like this is to love from the soul. It's soul centered and it's not from the wound because the wound feels that it's not whole. So true love doesn't actually create attachment, it's free. It does not say, you must be this way for me to be happy. It says, I see you as you are, and I honor you in your fullness. To love deeply, we must learn to see beyond the ego's labels. And this is that journey, right, of peeling back those layers. And I didn't understand this myself. I've been on this journey of peeling back the layers, and this is what I've discovered. So it is a journey to think differently, to question, and to start shifting your perspective. And it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And what I've realized is that the ego, it doesn't want to go quietly. It does not want to go quietly at all because this is battleground and it wants to feel safe. It wants to feel that it has a purpose. But all this is, it's a journey and it requires a lot of patience because that ego will always come up every once in a while and say to you, oh, if you don't do it this way, you'll lose it. And it will scare you. It will put this fear into your heart rather than love. And that's when you know it's ego because love is unconditional, it's expansive, it has no limits. Anything that puts that fear is coming from your ego, and it will try to convince you to project, to lead, to control. And this will happen, especially if you've been hurt before, because you are more guarded. Um, and your ego wants to keep you safe. So it's actually when we start to release these attachments that have taken up the space in the mind, and then things become less burdened, then what happens is that you're able to love more freely and you start to be more in a state of like live in a state of happiness. So how does all of this play out in relationships? And in essence, women crave to be cherished, to be held, and to be deeply seen. But what happens is that in the craving that comes from a place of lack is that they often start leading from a place of protection, from control, from a hardened shell that has kind of developed in response to past hurt and past pain, or societal conditioning. What I have observed is that feminism has actually made most women really hyper masculine. And what I mean by that is that we've been told to be strong, independent, self sufficient, qualities that are incredibly powerful in the outer world. But in the realm of love, they create walls. And I know this for myself. And that's where I speak of because we are told that we have to be a certain way to succeed in life. Having worked in corporates and worked in environments where it has been male dominated, but it means that you're always you're always having to have your backup. And I never really understood this aspect of being in my feminine energy because I was constantly in my masculine, and the constantly in the doing. And so when a woman is deeply in her masculine, it's always leading, it's always deciding, it's always managing. I know that that's a place that I've always been. It's something that comes naturally to me, it's something that I enjoy, but there's little space then for a man to kind of rise in his masculine to meet her. And what happens is that in relationships, we unconsciously block the space with the masculine in our partner to rise to. And the reason for this is because the masculine energy, it wants to provide, it wants to protect, it wants to hold space. That's what the masculine is all about. And the feminine energy wants to receive, to express, to flow. But when the feminine becomes rigid, what happens is that she unknowingly pushes away very intimacy that she longs for, not realizing that her energy has shaped that dynamic. And this is the conclusion that I've come to around why I think dating apps are bad, because they really force women into their masculine energy of chasing and not receiving. And this disrupts that natural polarity of energy that attracts a true masculine man, which is what the feminine seeks. That's what a woman seeks. And so that feminine energy, the actual feminine energy where it thrives is in connection and in intuition. So when we don't allow ourselves to soften, to receive, to be vulnerable, we start to feel unseen and unsupported. We end up putting up this armor around ourselves of being in control. And that control, what it really is, it's just a shield for the unhealed parts of us that still crave safety. But love, it doesn't grow in control, you see. Where does it grow? It grows in surrender. And that surrender, it doesn't mean weakness, it means trust. It means choosing your feminine softness not as a sacrifice. I used to think it was a sacrifice. No, it's not a sacrifice. Your feminine softness is a power. It's actually rephrasing from saying, I can do it all, but I choose not to carry it all. And, you know, when so many women say that they want to feel cherished, but in order to be cherished, you must first let yourself be seen. And that version of yourself, it's not a perfect version. It's the real one, the one that feels and the one that allows, the one that is unapologetically you. Now, let's look at the masculine. So, men are wired to be free and be in control, to be providers, to fix and solve problems. That's what their wiring is. But many men have been conditioned to suppress their emotions, and vulnerability is viewed as a weakness. So when love asks them to feel, soften, because remember, and women both have masculine and feminine energies. It's about finding that balance between the two. So when love asks men to feel, to soften, to hold space without fixing, what happens, it can feel really unfamiliar, or and it can even feel threatening. And so what men end up doing is unconsciously they seek control, they avoid that emotional depth, and they might detach when love feels too overwhelming. And it's not because they don't care, but because the ego has equated emotional openness with that sense of danger. And so when that masculine energy, when it's unhealed, it fears being needed beyond its capacity. It resists surrender and it confuses being present with performance. And this can show up as a man seeking multiple partners to validate their sense of worth or avoid the responsibility of a committed connection, which is what many women are seeking. But when a man learns to lead from an open heart, not just a strategic mind, he steps into the sacred masculine energy of purpose, of leadership, and of devotion. And it's this kind that doesn't dominate, but it holds space. It doesn't fix, but he sees. He doesn't possess, but he honors. And so when both partners bring ego, control, or that wounded energy to a relationship, love then becomes this battlefield of these unmet needs and unconscious expectations. However, as you can see, when both learn to soften, to return to presence, to release the images, and to meet each other as they are, love becomes a sacred dance. And it's not about perfection, it's about presence. And it's not about control, it is about surrender. And it's not about being right, it's about being real. I've done a previous episode on inner work that you might want to listen to, dive into as well. But for today, if you're wondering how to step more fully into your feminine and not to perform or people please, but to soften into your natural rhythm, I have a few gentle invitations that allow the masculine to rise and meet you there. So do try this and let me know what your thoughts are and how it might have worked for you. So firstly, softness. And softness isn't a weakness. It's this quiet strength that calms the nervous system. It lives in your tone, in the warmth of your smile. And so the masculine, which often holds and drives, will find rest in this softness. Yeah, it will become a sanctuary, a place where he doesn't need to prove or push and just be. So practice being soft, nurturing. Now, this is the energy of care, of holding space. And it's not to be confused with mothering and smothering. There's a very big difference. So, an example of nurturing would be as simple as cooking a meal with love, offering a grounding touch, being his quiet cheerleader behind the scenes. When we nurture from overflow, not obligation, what happens is that it nourishes the masculine and invites him to lean in, deepen, and lead from a more connected place. And then that reinforces their role as providers. Playfulness. There's this magic in lightness. And I've often been told that that lightness is that smile that I have or my laugh. So, it's those small things where it's that playfulness where you can just laugh, dance, have a twirl in the kitchen. And it's that playfulness that will invite him to return to presence, to shake off the weight of the world. And it's not being about performative, it's really about letting your joy be felt and shared. And that's where magnetism really lives. And then there's vulnerability. So that is to be seen in your truth. And remember that the masculine, their desire is to feel needed. And so it is about softening your walls and saying, I need you. I feel this. I don't have to do it all myself, and allow the masculine to step in. And this is where that intimacy deepens, when you lean into his strength with the trust, when you give the masculine something sacred. And that something sacred is purpose, because you're giving them that purpose to provide for you, the purpose to create that safety for you. And that openness then becomes the doorway to that deeper connection. And lastly, admiration. The masculine thrives on feeling respected and seen for who he is and how he shows up. And when you genuinely celebrate his efforts, not just with words, but with your energy, your presence, your pride, it lights something up in him. It tells him, I see you, I trust you, I honor you. And this is that silent power, that softness. As always, I want to leave you with a few questions, a few reflective questions that will help you shift your perspective and help you start that journey of self inquiry. So ask yourself, what roles have I been unconsciously playing in love? Two, am I leading with control or flowing with presence? And three, where am I still holding an image of how someone should be? And most importantly, what would love do here if ego wasn't running the show? Breathe into that. And remember, when you release attachment, love doesn't disappear, it expands. And you were never meant to control love, you were meant to become it. As always, your time is valuable, it's the most precious commodity. So, thank you so much for being here and sharing this space with me. Thank you for pressing pause and choosing to journey inward and daring to become the highest expression of yourself. As always, I use these episodes as reminders for myself, like mini guides that you can refer to whenever you need to check in with yourself for a moment of recalibration. And do feel free to share them with someone who might need to hear them. And do continue to share your comments and feedback too, as it will help me to know what resonates for you and what you would like to hear more of. See you on the next episode.